folks, Mitch Taco Bell, and welcome to Tall Tales with Taco. Another great Tuesday, and tonight I have Pete Barnett. He's my old boss we go back to 2005 when I got out of the Marine Corps, got back in on recruiting duty, and we were reserve support officers helping out the local RSs and whatnot. And Pete was our main guy that we reported to. He retired as a full bird colonel, and he is also a very successful executive producer out in Hollywood. So I am very honored to have the time of my old dear friend. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Taco. Can't complain. A lot of rain and wetness here in LA this time of year for some reason. And so I got the roof leak fixed, so I'm happy.
Hey, life's good. Good to be seen. Nobody's shooting at you.
No, exactly.
Holy cow. We were kind of talking off air about all the email. I was tracking all the email traffic all the way back to 2005 when I got back on and I volunteered to go to Iraq. And I remember sending the emails, sir, this is not right. You know, they're telling me I need to go to S4 to go draw my gear to go to Iraq. And I'm talking to the S4 staff sergeant. And he's like, sir, let me show you what I got. And he opens up the closet at the RS, and it's stickers and T-shirts. And I'm going, where am I supposed to draw my M16? You know, where do I get my rifle? Where do I get my helmet, my Kevlar, and all that stuff? And finally, somebody over at Mag 41 hooked me up and outfitted me. But that was a great tour, taking over Tommy Dietrich as the assistant air boss over in Altacottum. But your background, you're a rotorhead by trade.
Correct. Right? Yeah, I flew a little bit of everything. I flew on every aircraft, helicopters in the inventory. Whether I stole a Cobra without any knowing, but I started out in 46's East Coast and then transitioned to Huey's. I was an HMM 261 on the East Coast, and we were, I think, the only squadron in history to be named Squadron of the Year 2 years in a row. And we wrote the book on night vision goggles operations off of boats, which is great, or ships rather. You can put a boat in a ship, but you can't put a ship in a boat. That's what my Navy guys tell me. Then I transitioned to Huey's down in Camp Pendleton, then moved on over to El Toro SAR, flew search and rescue for a couple of years, and also Super King Airs or C-12s, which is a great aircraft. So hauling, VIPs around, which is a lot of fun.
Were you over there with Dan Hodge?
Hodgie? We were in 266 together. We did some deployments to Norway and Puerto Rico.
Gotcha. Because he showed up. He was a transition guy at my squadron, 252, and we were both pilots with American. Look at us. So that's 774, if I'm reading that right.
So
Reserve squadron.
That was at the retirement ceremony for the 46 about, 6 years ago, I think it was. 2015 or something, maybe longer than 8 years. And so this is a good story. So that airframe flew in Vietnam. And I always do this when I see older aircraft lying around. I call my daughter up and say, pull my flight log book out. And here's the tail number. So that bird, the 46, there was a big, there's like 3,000 people at this retirement ceremony. And they had a really nice reception the night before down at the Marine Corps Museum. And they had all these 46 polo shirts printed up with the tail number on below the 46. So I looked it up, and I found out I'd flown that in 266. And so I spread that around a couple other guys. And I'm sure Dan Hodge flew it. And then there's a guy named Bill Dobratz who flew it. And then he went to his dad, and his dad flew that airframe in Vietnam.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, that's a special aircraft. That really is. It's survived that much.
Well, they put that that's a beautiful paint job on that.
That's the cleanest one I've ever seen. Well, it was going to go in the museum, so you don't want to put a real Marine Corps helicopter in there to leak oil. But,
Well, I was going to say, if they didn't put it in the museum, it probably ended up as a derelict wreck over in Afghanistan after we pulled out there left all the 46s there.
Yeah.
Poor babies, man. God.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you love to get the, cyclic off that or something, to add to your little I love me
collection
thing.
of stolen or retrieved parts. Yeah.
I love this. I love this photo. So you've got an altimeter there, you've got a clock, and then you have a turn slip indicator. Where did you get all that stuff?
So the clock, I was trying to find an 8-day clock to put in there. I've had those gauges for 30 some odd years. We were doing a deployment down to Puerto Rico. It's one of the greatest things I got to do is we flew 46s all the way from New River all the way down to Roosevelt Roads. Ooh. And along the journey, we stopped about 4 nights and then refueled, spent the night. But one of our first stops was in Freeport, Bahamas. And it was in 88, and that's when a lot of the drug running was going on. And as we're flying over the Caribbean there, Triangle, we could actually see a lot of ditched planes that were used for drug running. Yeah. And so flew into Freeport, and there were a whole boneyard or just a bunch of confiscated, drug running aircraft. So I saw a DC-3 over there, and I love DC-3s. So I told my crew chief to grab his tool bag and come with me. And so he goes, "What for, sir?" And I go, "Just come along." So we climbed the DC-3, and I'm like, "Well, what do I want out of this thing?" So he took his tools out, and I kept the slip and ball indicator and the altitude altimeter. And
what about the yoke?
I think I would have taken a bigger screwdriver, but
hacksaw, man. Hacksaw.
Yeah. Well, that'd be a little obvious because I could throw the gauges in my helmet bag and nobody'd say anything. But right. So they sat in my basement for almost 30 years until I figured out. A good friend of mine, Mike Manful, is a Huey pilot. He actually built the cabinet for it, and I've always wanted to have that on my desk or displayed out. It's
I love it.
Great memory.
Yeah, that's cool. You ought to, turn the inside into a humidor, and then it'd be perfect, right? What time is it? Hey, it's time for a cigar. Here we go.
That's the last thing I need is another humidor.
Oh man. Well, so you joined in like 83. You went through and became a pilot. Then, if I remember right, around 83, 84 timeframe.
Yep.
How long did you stay on active duty?
So, showed up and put my feet on the yellow footprints on June 6th of 83. Obviously, everybody has to do the basic school or.
So you did 10-week PLC, or
I did 10-week OCS. I'd already graduated college the year before, and there was no work, and there's a writer's strike, and I was pretty much working as a lunch waiter in a steakhouse, looking at my life going, what the hell am I doing? And so that's when I said, you know what, I always had good eyes as an athlete, and I said, I'm gonna go look at the services, and somehow the Marine Corps seemed to be the right fit for me. And so went in and spent there, then TBS, then went to flight school, and I wanted to fly helicopters. I wasn't going to be a jet guy or a transport guy. I just wanted to fly helicopters. And so when I got winged in the Whiting Tower paper, it said that I was going 53 Deltas to Tustin because I wanted to come back to the West Coast rather than stay in beautiful Jacksonville, North Carolina, where, people, whatever. It's not that great a place. But anyway, I called the monitor because they originally had 46s East Coast. I called the monitor, Lion Jack Gavin. You never forget these guys. And I was doing OSO duty for 3 weeks here in Los Angeles. So I went down to Tustin, went to the S1 and said, "Hey guys, I'm already here. All my goods are here. Can you transfer me over to 53s and stay in Tustin?" And they said, "Sure." So Lion Jack got wind of that and called me up and said, "Listen, Barnett, you try to change your orders again, or you're going to be flying helicopters in Nome, Alaska." So I retreated quickly back to 46s in New River. And I'll tell you what, Taco, I would not give up that experience for the world. Sometimes you think you're getting screwed in the Marine Corps, and it ends up being the best thing for you. Almost all my friends now are out of the East Coast squadrons, and just, my best friends.
Yeah, we're talking about, here's a great shot of, when you go back and you look at how young we were back in the day, there you are at TBS, First Squad, and
that's me in the center.
Yeah, you right in the center there. and some of the people that here we are looking at the guys now, right? Hadn't aged a day.
That's it. No, I was at my bar in Vegas. I had a bar down on Fremont Street for 10 years.
Oh, geez. Well, that's Ed Burris right down center squatting.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yep.
And Ed was one of my flight instructors back in VT-27 as a young captain. Stud. That guy, like I told you, that guy was the guy young lieutenants could go talk to, that he didn't have the captain ego. It was an instructor-student relationship, but he was open to talking to you and shooting the bull. And we had a whole handful of those guys that ended up going on to the airlines and different things. But boy, I have fond memories of him.
Yeah, he's a great guy, still a great guy, and a really understanding, great teacher too, great instructor.
That's what I love about the Corps. You know, within about 6 questions, you could drill down and you can find a commonality between somebody you served with, I served with. Hell, I could probably, what's that guy's name? Robert Kawasaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He was a helicopter pilot in Hawaii. About your time frame.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny when you go coast, you pretty much lose contact with your friends you were at flight school with. If you go West Coast or you're going to Okinawa or Hawaii, you know, my roommate in flight school was Matt Brackman, and he ended up getting 53s and going to Hawaii. And, you know, I still stay in contact with at least 30 of my contemporaries. We have a chat room on Signal that has about 18 guys in it. And when the ball games are going, just wait for your phone to blow up. But we talk all the time, and I've been sponsoring, organizing reunions for my guys for the past, I'm gonna say 20 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anywhere from Vegas to St. Louis to Chicago to Orlando. John Feely, one of my old squadron mates, ended up becoming the ambassador to Panama. And we went down there about 6 years ago, and I got to be the guest of honor. And it was 300 people at the ball, and I think 34 of us came down with their wives. It was awesome. It was great.
Boy, I tell you what. And you're right, though, when you were talking about when you left and guys went to Okinawa, you didn't see them. There was no email back then, and you didn't write letters to keep in touch. Yep. So unless you ran into them at a school or a exercise at a bar or whatever, you probably never saw them. Well, if we roll all the way back to the early 80s, what did you do? How did you start in Hollywood trying to break into Hollywood?
I was pretty much raised in Northern California in Chico and Redding. And if you ever heard of Chico State, I went to high school there, and I did 2 years at Chico State. But I had to get out of there because my liver wasn't going to last very long in Chico, because it was like the #1 party school, Playboy magazine for like 12 years. So I had to get the hell out of there. And I originally wanted to be a lawyer, but then I took a filmmaking class, and the instructor said, you know, you're the best one in the class. You should actually go down to Los Angeles and get in the film and TV industry. And I said, can you make any money doing that? And he said, oh yeah. So I packed up my dog and my truck, and off I went to Southern California. I finished up at Cal State Northridge in '82, and then worked on a couple independent films. And then there's a writer's strike for about a year, and I had no work. So I said, F this, and started looking at the services, and the Marine Corps seemed to be the best fit for me.
Well, yeah, to be an aviator.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the guaranteed flight contract.
I'll tell you something, Taco. So when I landed in Quantico on June 6th, there were 128 flight guarantees. 2 years later, when everybody's getting winged, only 38 got winged because of mental things. Eyes went bad.
Change of heart, wanted to be a grunt.
Change of heart. Some went to the Navy, easy out. But just for different things, medical reasons, non-flight adaptability, you know, just couldn't do the aircraft, whatnot. One of my TBS mates, Bill Devitt, his eyes, he washed out in TBS, and he ended up becoming a airline pilot for Northwest, and he flies for Delta now. He's a captain, and he's been flying for like 25 years, but he didn't lose his dream just because the Marine Corps called him Bad Eyes.
My roommate, Jim Boyke, had the same deal. When I went bad, we come back off a 20-mile hump the night before. We were studying up late for some test, and then right after the test, they put us in the cattle car, took us to the main side, and we go into that 20-foot room, and you do the 20-foot eye test. I could barely see it, and he missed a C to a D or something like that, and he became air traffic control. But while I was at Cherry Point, he called me up one day, and he goes, he was a New River ATC, and he says, "Hey, dude, the new Secretary of the Navy is an NFO or SecNav. Whoever the guy was, he was an NFO, and he always was pissed that they made him a Rio because he couldn't see out of one eye, missed one letter or whatever. And so he made that waiver where you could go 2040 correctable 2020.
Right.
Jim got a shot, flew C-130s, and now he's over at American with me.
That's great. I had a contemporary in VT2 who's he knew his eyes were going bad. He went out to a private ophthalmologist. So he snuck into the building one night and memorized the eye chart. He ended up getting F-18s.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's what Marines do. We just try to make it happen.
Well, now, would you tell us about when you got off active duty,
right,
and how you ended up back in? Well, you're from California, so
yeah.
But how did you break back into Hollywood? Who gave you your break?
Good question. So I left New River and I came back to Orange County because I wanted to be closer to Hollywood, and I got my master's degree in business. And then after 10 years of active duty, and my wife was working in human resources, so she got a job. She was at PepsiCo in Irvine, and then when she got a job up here with Universal Studios in HR. And so we moved up here, and I just started calling some old college friends that I kind of kept in touch with. And one of them was Mark Bakshi, who was the head of production at Buena Vista at the time. And I don't know if people remember this if you're really old, but there were these animated movies called like Fritz the Cat, and his dad was Ralph Bakshi. So his dad was a pretty big guy back in the 60s and 70s. But Mark set me up with a couple interviews at Disney, and I ended up starting out in finance at Walt Disney Pictures and Hollywood Pictures and Touchstone doing budgets.
Wow.
And they hired me because of my aviation background and marine background. So, for example, I did the budgets for The Rock and Con Air and some of those other, big action movies back in the, and that would have been like in 94, 95, something like that.
Oh, wait a minute. I could actually pull that up and tell you, because you needed, let's see, Spy Hard was 96.
Yeah, so that would have been actually. I couldn't stand being a staff guy and working out of a cubicle, so I left. I had a 1-year contract, and after 7 months, I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. So they ended up putting me on as an accountant on Spy Hard. So that was my first real feature film to work on, and then from there, I just worked in finance and accounting, and then worked my way up the chain, and finally an executive producer friend, Tim Marks, gave me a break, and I produced the show Arliss on HBO. And so that was 1999, and I've been pretty much producing and doing shows and being an executive at HBO and Netflix, doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, you got hired by a Marine, right? Or a Marine gave you a break? Was he a Marine?
Nope, he wasn't a Marine. No, he's just a college connection.
Oh, what about Marines? Marines help out Marines a lot. So
correct.
Have you run into like Adam Driver, John from Chips, who was he's a staff sergeant in the Marines in Vietnam. Adam Driver's the only current serving Marine that I know out, who served right before the Gulf War kicked off. I think it's when he got out, went to acting school. Mm-hmm. But have you run into any other Marines currently?
Well, probably the oldest Marine that's really successful is a guy named Don Belisario, and he created Magnum PI, JAG,
NCIS, JAG,
all those. Yeah, he did that, and then he actually hired a guy who was helping me out in recruiting as well too, by the name of John Kelly. And then John came on to write the last couple seasons of JAG, and then he went on to write Blacklist and NCIS too. So that's John Kelly. And then there's another guy I met, Kevin Collins, who was a grunt and is actually on the cruise before us. And he was a grunt, but he went to Grenada on that deployment when Beirut blew up, when the barracks blew up. And so Kevin has worked for me a couple times when I'm executive producing, and he's my operations guy and line producer, as we call them. So you bump into them occasionally, but it's kind of a rare breed. It really is.
How about Dale Dye? I know him through charity work out here. So we see Dale he moved to Texas.
Yeah.
He and his wife, Julie, but.
Yep. I've dealt with Dale.
And Freddie Joe Farnsworth.
Don't know him.
If you ever get a chance to meet him, see the uniform behind me?
Yeah. Yeah.
On the mannequin. Yeah. That's Freddie Joe was working for Dale at the time. And they did Band of Brothers, and then they went to Australia and did the Pacific. That's the uniform he wore in the TV show.
Oh, fun.
So, yeah. Oh, he's a bullet sponge, man. You'd love sitting there shooting the shit with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Bruce McKenna, he wrote 4 episodes of Band of Brothers.
Oh, yeah, I met him.
Him and I were friends and neighbors. And then when he got the gig to do the Pacific, he would send me the scripts before they even went to Spielberg and Hanks to try to get a true Marine perspective and, not too much Semper Fi's and high fives and, don't overdo it type of a thing.
Right.
And I took Bruce down to Camp Pendleton reunion of the Iwo Jima vets. And there's about 80 of them there. And it was a fantastic evening and dinner and everything. And Bruce got to meet a lot of them and followed up for a lot for the Pacific. But, that's kind of my way to connect Hollywood with the Marines too. So I do that occasionally, but it depends on the people and what kind of show they're doing.
Does it work out? Is it kind of a secret club? You find out somebody's a Marine, and it's not like you show up on set with your EGA on there.
No. Right? No, I mean, I can only think of maybe 8 Marines I've ever met in my career that are in the business. Every Marine, when they get out of active duty, they think they're going to be a technical advisor. That's their big goal. And, if every Marine that want to be a technical advisor, there's probably over 1,000 of them, but there's like 4 that really work in the business. And it's all about relationships, and they've established those relationships. But it's like if somebody came to me and says, "Hey, I want to do something about Iraq or Afghanistan," I go, "Well, I don't know half the equipment we have now," and I would have no clue of what,
Yeah.
It was 30, quite a while ago. So I would defer to somebody else or give them a name to say, "Hey, this person really knows what's going on."
Yeah. Well, you were talking about Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
I just see that poster right there.
Yeah.
I was there for the 50th. That was my Finney flight in the squadron.
Fantastic.
So I spent 2 weeks on island for the 50th anniversary of Iwo Jima.
Wow.
I say it 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. So went caving, did all this crazy stuff. Well, I put a post on Facebook about I'm starting a sand collection. I can see the little bottles behind me.
Yeah.
And I have sand that I got from Iwo Jima, but I never got some from the invasion beach of Okinawa. Well, one of my buddies, 130 guy that was there with me, Mark Mutant, emails me and sends me a message and goes, "Hey, dude, you just totally made me remember something I've forgotten. It's been 30 years. And when he was on the island walking around, he was picking up some bullets that he saw some rounds, the heads sticking out, and he picked them up and he'd something glint and he pulled out a dog tag. He found this dog tag in the sand, and the dog tag, he always wondered what happened to this guy. Did he die in the battle? And this is 1995, so there was no way Ancestry.com or any of that stuff. So he sent me a picture of it. I gave it to my buddy Zach Fike, who we do Purple Hearts Reunited. Within a day, he had the name of the son and his phone number down in Georgia, and I got a hold of the son. He survived. He wasn't in the battle. He was a U.S. Army occupation force. And spent like a year on the island, following the battle and whatnot. And it was still dangerous back then because the Japs were still camped out, hidden in the caves.
Yeah.
But somehow he had lost his dog tag. Now we have it. We're going to do a really cool return, give him some sand from the island.
That'd be awesome.
And take it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
a friend of mine, Larry Borger, went on a tour there a couple of years ago. Larry's 53's West Coast. And he brought me back a little vial of sand from there. And then I was in Bella Wood 8 years ago, which is an amazing place. If nobody's ever been there, it's probably one of the most beautiful cemeteries you'll ever see in your life. And I was there.
Get the key.
Well, I was there in France, and we were driving all around, and I got there like at 5 o'clock at night, and the gates were closed. And this car drives out. They're big, beautiful iron gates. This car drives out, and there's this French gal, and I said, "Hey, I've come all the way from California to see the cemetery." And she said, "Just a second." Okay, so she picks up her phone, calls, and she goes, "Okay, go ahead and go on in. The director's waiting for you." And he gave us this VIP tour. And there's a chapel up there with every Marine who died in the battle engraved on the wall. He just gave me the keys and said, "Here, go enjoy yourself and bring it back when you're done." And
Wow.
so I took a little vial of stones from Bellwood.
I've got a little tiny vial of water that coming out of the fountain with the dog. A buddy of mine had gotten a bottle, shipped it back, brought it back, and and it's not moldy or anything, man. That water is just pure as a day. It came out of that dog's mouth.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Talk about history. I love talking to former Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, but Marines in general. What is your favorite story about, you could put two Marines in a party of 500 people and they're going to find each other like magnets at the bar.
Right. Yeah.
But what is your best small world story of running into another jarhead or seeing somebody that?
That's a really good question. You should have.
I should have prepped you, right?
2 hours ago.
You'd be thinking about 2 a.m.
I did an exercise in Korea with the ROC Marines about in 87 or 88. And I ran into a guy I'd seen since flight school. So that's like 5 or 6 years, Brad Hawkins. He's a 46 guy on the West Coast. And I ran into him and a couple other guys just doing exercises in the reserves. I'm sorry. Yeah, about 2008. I'm sorry, 2008. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so I did occasionally run into guys, and we chat and whatnot. Or you were saying, I think there's 1 degree of separation in the Marine Corps, really. People say 6 degrees of separation for Kevin Bacon in your life or something like that. I forget what it was, but anyway, in Hollywood, it's like 2 degrees separation. But the Marines is like 1 degree. You're going to know somebody who knew somebody, whether they met them in passing and they met them at a promotion board or something like that. So
sure,
there's a few instances I can think. That's the one I think off the top of my head. And I did worked in down in Thailand on right after that in 2008 when the tsunami hit Burma. And it was like 10,000 Army, Marines, Thai, Filipinos were all there for the service. And what they did was they broke it off 2 operation centers, one real world and one to do the exercise with. And so I was a senior aviator in country at the time. Well, there's a 2-star general as an F-18 guy, but you can't even count him. So it didn't do any of the logistics. And I'd been in the PAC Civil officer at El Toro for 3 years. So I knew all about aircraft, loading them and all that kind of fun stuff. So that was really exciting. And Ed Burris was there as well, too.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Was he still doing reserves at that time?
Yeah, he was still, he was with the RAD, I think it was called. Anyway, a lot of these things we did, we just kind of call up buddy. They say, "Hey, you want to come along and go?" And so Ed was there. And so the Marines called me and said, "Hey, do you want to go do this thing in Malaysia?" And I said, "Well, can I build my own team?" And they said, "Sure." So I brought on Ed Burris and a couple other guys, some senior enlisted guys I knew. And it was like 12 of us that went down to Malaysia to basically brief their. It's actually kind of funny. I won't go there, but we got down there and it's 13 of us and we're staying in this nice hotel and everything. And there was the person in charge was a Navy admiral or vice admiral, whatever 1-star is. And she was in Singapore. And so she was overseeing the whole thing in Malaysia. And I said, okay, it's a dry country. So there's no booze, right? So I stopped my driver. I said, "Stop over here in this restaurant or whatever." And I go, "Hey, I need a couple 6-packs of beer." And the guy's like, "Yes, you do. Yes, you do." And I pulled out $20 and he goes, "Yes, I do." And so all my team was already in the hotel lobby and I showed up with a couple 6-packs of beer and we're sitting there drinking beer in the lobby and all these Navy guys are like, "What's going on? Where'd you get that at?" And And then the 1-star walks in and she goes, "Hey, can I have one of those?" We're like, "Yes, ma'am." And so the rest of the week she sat with us for every meal, and the Navy guys just hated us. They had a big to do with the Malaysian military, big dinner party or something like that, and they all had to wear their whites or their dress uniforms.
Yeah.
And we showed up in our khakis and polo shirts, Marine polo shirts, and there's nothing like busting on the other services, and whenever you bait a Navy guy and they want to call your department, the Navy go, "Yeah, we're the men's department."
Sounds like something right out of the Great Santini.
Exactly. It's hard to describe to people that haven't done what we've done, and how it just really makes your life and it full, and the things you got to experience. It's I wouldn't. I've been doing a lot in Hollywood, and I've done some other things, but I wouldn't take my Marine Corps away for anything.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I met a kid in college. He was a Air Force guard or reserves or something like that. They pulled him out of college his junior year, sent him to flight school, commissioned him, came back, finished up college at Maryland. I was at James Madison at the time. And I thought he was a poser because he's like, "Yeah, I graduate this May." I'm like, "Why are you wearing a flight jacket with wings?" "Oh, well, they commissioned me and gave me my wings." And I'm thinking he's full of shit. And he pulled out his ID, and there he was, Second Lieutenant Smuckatelli. But he went that way. He probably got hired 2 years after I graduated, and then it would be another 10 years before I got on. But now I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, that's how I got hired at my airline. Was I was on recruiting duty, and my replacement was out flying the T-34 around, and I'm sitting in this recruiting booth next to a guy, and he'd retired 97. This is in 98, so he just freshly retired. But turns out old Reb was RF-4QDs, whatever the hell they call DC-4s in Vietnam.
Wow.
Great stories. Got out in 64, got hired by American, and retired 97. And that's the reason I got hired, is because a Marine took care of me. And I tell my daughter, and my daughter's at Texas A&M, and I go, the relationships that you form and the networking that you make in that school throughout Texas. You're going to go to a job interview, and it's going to be you. It'll be a couple UT people, and blah, blah, blah. And I guarantee you, they're going to give a little extra consideration to that A&M Aggie grad like them, that, like has the same ring, and they're going to remember that. So, those relationships are very special, and the Marines are the same way.
I got a quick Aggie one for you. So Ed Burris was an Aggie, right?
Right.
So this is about 7 or 8 years ago. My daughter was going to University of Alabama, and she had some serious medical issues going on. She had to have open heart surgery. That's like in November. And Ed came over. He drove over to hang out with me in Tuscaloosa. And so we were going to pick up her car at the school, and we said, you know what? I was talking on the phone with this instructor, and this guy was like, you know what? She needs to decide if she's going to drop the class. Is she going to drop the class, or what is she going to do? And I said, well, she just went in the hospital. We'll find out and get back to you. He goes, well, you need to let me know tonight because I'm going on vacation for Thanksgiving tomorrow. Burris, the steam was coming out of his ears, right? He's just like, this motherfucker, ADA, American Disabilities. So we got on the phone and we called the president of the university. and she
shit rolled downhill fast.
The secretary was, she was like, well, you know what? The president's more of a, kiss babies and shake hands kind of a guy. But I'm going to turn you on to basically the XO, which is the dean of deans. He's the dean over all the deans of the school. So I call up his secretary, and she goes, he's in a meeting. He'll be back around here like 5 o'clock, and we'd be happy to have him call you. And I go, okay, thanks. Well, Ed looks at me and he goes, we're not doing a fucking call. He goes, we're going to go into his office. So we go over to the office and wait till the guy comes back from it. And he comes out, yes, gentlemen, how can I help you? And I said, I have a situation. And he goes, okay. We sit down in front of his big desk, and Ed looks up on the wall, and there's 2 F-18s there. And right next to it is a Texas A&M diploma. So we were there an hour. 5 minutes, I pitched him what was going on with my daughter. He just said, stop right there. He goes, I'll take care of this. I have 2 daughters. And the rest of the time was him and Ed talking about Texas A&M and F-18 refurbishment and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh,
That's a big network.
yeah.
Marines, universities. It was great. And then Ed and I walked away very happy about it. And then the year I went back and took him out to lunch. Great guy, just a great guy.
You know what? As a matter of fact, I don't know if this will work or not. We were talking about him. We might as well bring him on.
He rarely answers the phone. Maybe it'll go for you.
Hey, Ed, it's Taco. How are you?
Real good. Your name popped up on the caller ID. How you doing?
Listen, I'm doing fantastic. And your name, I think your ears are probably burning because I'm on the horn here with Peter Barnett doing a podcast. So when this comes out, you will be on the podcast live. And we've got some great stories we're throwing around about you, especially the best damn instructor at VT, you and Tom Homan, best instructors at VT 27, and what you did for his daughter and all that.
I was never at VT 27. I deny it all. You're going to have to prove it.
Oh my God. Well, I know you can't hear Pete, but he's smiling and laughing. And when you get a chance, this podcast will play. Hope you can catch it. Let me give you a call, and I just wanted to bring you on.
So this is like ambush journalism?
This is ambush journalism, brother. Marine to Marine. We're having a great time, and just go ahead and say hello to everybody.
He wouldn't take my call if I dialed. He wouldn't take my call.
How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, Pete says, good thing you called him because he wouldn't take my call if I called him. Well, listen, I will definitely.
I just waited for the voicemail to see what he was calling about.
He needed that $20 back from California when you were out there last. Well, listen, I'm going to give you a call back, and I'll catch up with you soon. All right.
All right.
You take care. Hoorah. Bye-bye. Ambush journalism, man, right there on the podcast with Tall Tales and Taco.
That's awesome. I'm glad he picked up.
Yeah, he's, like I said, just an awesome guy. Man, this I want to show. Talk about this right here. What a cool story.
Yeah, so this is Paul Hoot, who was 102. He's 102 years old. He lives about 5 minutes from me. He was in the Army Air Corps in Italy during the war, and my friend Larry Borger, who's a finance guy, reads like 4 different papers a day to keep up on things. Found this article on Paul about him not being able to pay his gas bill. The gas bills have gone out of control in LA. I mean, they've tripled in the past year. And so this little article that a journalist here in LA wrote, and Larry saw it. He says, "Hey, Pete, this guy probably lives close to you." So I did a little research, went on the internet, and found his address and phone number, called him, and said, "Hey, you know what? My buddies, we're really interested. We want to come help you out." So we raised, I don't know, about $3,700 like in 2 days. And so I went over at his house. It was a week ago Friday, gave him the check, and it's just a super guy. He's 102 years old. He's lived in the same bungalow in Hollywood for 70 years. He married a Yugoslavian woman with 2 kids when he was stationed there after the war, and he moved back to Wisconsin with this young bride and two of her kids, and then he ended up working in Los Angeles most of the rest of his life for Southern Pacific Railway. And his hearing was a little bad, but mine's even worse probably. But he was still sharp as a tack, and it was such an honor and a privilege to go talk with him. As a matter of fact, I'll probably give him a call this afternoon just to check in. But he's got some grandkids that are still around in LA. But when you get to meet somebody like that, it's such a rare thing in life, and take advantage of that.
Even more nowadays. I mean, the guys are dying at the cyclic rate, unfortunately. And what's really sad too is the Korean dudes, all the Korean era generation folks are passing, and then you got the Vietnam era guys are up there. My dad's 85. And Barney Barnum, I talked to him, and he's in his 80s, and he's he just slowing down a little bit, and all the Vietnam era guys are slowing down a little bit, and that's sad to see because 20 years ago you could talk to any number of World War II folks and Korean folks, and Yeah, that is a sad deal.
When I hosted the Marine Corps birthday there in Orlando back in November, when the Navy was playing against UCF, University of Central Florida in Orlando, I invited an 80-year-old F-8 pilot from Vietnam,
Wow.
Jim Nunn, Navy guy, to come, and he did 3 consecutive tours. He's the only aviator to survive an underwater injection.
What happened to that? How did
They
you do that?
launched him off the ship at idle,
Whoa!
and
he was, what was he in?
F-8 Crusader.
Oh wow!
And he ended up being like the XO at the early days of Top Gun and Weapons Guy and missile guy. And Jim's a big guy, and I put him up for all the time we were there, just because I had to keep an eye on him. But sharp as a tack, been through hell and everything, and yet he's just a super guy. And a lot of guys like Hoban talked his ear off.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just it's just kind of sad we're losing all these vets with all their history and their experience, and get as many stories as we can.
Yeah, collect them all. I've talked to a few. I had a Hank Wunderlich, German guy from Wisconsin, and he was a tail gunner on a B-24, did 7 missions, got shot down on his first mission and made it back, and he got shot down on his 7th mission, became a POW. Well, when my buddy called me up and said, "Hey, I got this guy, and do you want to talk to him?" I'm like, "Yeah, when do you want to schedule it?" And I'm, dude, like tomorrow. I mean, sooner than later, right? Yeah. We did it, and friggin' a week and a half later, I get a text, "Hey, Hank passed." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" And
wow.
97 years old, you get to that age where you go to bed and God just turns the light switch off, and you had a great life. No ands, ifs, or buts. Hey, I want to go back real quick before we finish up. Hollywood, what is your favorite production that you worked on so far?
People always ask me that, and I've worked on several. But I would go back to the HBO comedy Arliss that did with Robert Wool, Sandra Oh, Michael Boatman, about a sports agent, because I met so many people, celebrities and sports people on there. And my favorite is probably James Colburn. And he worked on the show, and he died like 2 months after that. But Jim was just a super guy. And of course, Magnificent Seven is probably my favorite Western. And if you remember, Jim was in that. And so he had really bad arthritis. And so I brought my DVD, and I've asked for like 3 autographs my entire career. But it's James Colburn, for God's sakes,
Yeah.
Marlon Brando was there. I go, "Can you meet me?" So I brought my DVD jacket in, and a Sharpie, and I go, "Jim, I know I don't do this very often." He goes, "But would you sign it for me?" He goes, "Peter, of course I will." So he's got his Sharpie in his hand, and it's just. But I tell you what, I got to meet a lot of fun. Phyllis Diller, Jack LaLanne, any number of sports people, and even had Ed Asner.
Ed. What? Wow.
Ed Asner played a guy that had Alzheimer's, and we got this big Alzheimer award from the society about doing something with he was an aging sportscaster. But it did 3 years there, and it was absolutely phenomenal.
And you did Sopranos as well.
I did a little work in The Sopranos, the last season, when he came on a jet to Las Vegas, and then he went up there and smoked the peyote and all that kind of stuff. And I was in Caesar's Palace. So I produced that part of the episode. So it wasn't like for a long time, but I did that.
Well, I met Bill Bottolato, who executive producer for Top Gun, the original one back in '86.
Uh-huh.
So I was kind of asking him, what does a producer do? And he said, "I'm the money guy. I'm the money guy, and I got to make sure that this is taken care of and smooth that ego out and do this." What is your definition of an executive producer?
Well, it's just to clarify, movies and television are very different. Because in television, you have several producers, of which there's really only 2. It's generally like the guy you talk to, he's a line producer. That's the produced by credit. And then the executive producer, who's also referred to as a showrunner, he's the one who created the show. He oversees the writing staff. And then if you look at television credits, there's going to be between 8 and 14 consulting producer, co-executive producer, executive. They're all writers. They're not producers. Right. They're writers. The reason you give them a producing credit is because they're members of the Writers Guild. And if you make them what we call a hyphenate, you pay part of them as a producer and part as a writer. Their fringe or their benefits max out at $9,000 a week.
Oh,
sounds like a lot of money, $9,000 a week. A lot of these writers, producers are making $15,000 to $20,000 a week. So we're saving 20% by making them a producer, but they're not really producers.
But they're getting the credit.
In feature films, the director is really the boss there. In television, the senior writer or the showrunner is really the boss of the show. In features, it's the director, and you don't see as many producers in features. There's generally an executive producer who is like the money guy, and then there's people that gave him the money. Other than that, I mean, like, you know, the Spielberg and Bruckheimer, they'll throw their name all around, and you know they'll get on a different project, and they probably never did anything on it, but they're using their name, or you know, they give them $30,000 an episode to have their name on the show or something like that,
which attracts the star to be in the show, or the people to green light it. Sure,
exactly. Yeah,
you know, I looked you up on IMDb. Whoop, there you go. And you've got your IMDb. You got it. We need to put a picture in there for you. You don't have a photo.
Well, I did at some point. There's IMDb and IMDb Pro, and if you're Pro, you know you can put your picture in. But you know, I'm not that active in the business right now because I'm writing a novel. I pretty much hung up my hat. But if somebody calls and I like them, I'll go back to work for them. But I did see on there, I did work on American History X. That was probably the most bizarre thing I ever worked on.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's really crazy. Stacy Keach was the skinhead villain in it, and the director was absolutely nuts. And that guy by the name of Tony Kaye, who'd never done a feature before. He's a big commercial guy for Nike and all that stuff. But he actually went down to Orange County and recruited real skinheads to be in the scene in the barn.
Wow. How'd that go?
We survived.
How many cameras were really destroyed? Yeah. Hey, sorry, boys, we don't pay for the dental insurance. You know, we're not paying.
You know, the Marine Corps in this business, you get a lot of stories. You really experience things that some people can't even fathom, and you're just like, what you did? What? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
You know.
You know what's funny is coming out of the Marine Corps, Berger was my OSO.
Oh, wow.
So I asked him to be on the podcast 2 years ago, and I'm emailing his secretary, and she goes, "Oh, here's my phone number. Give me a call." So I call her, and she goes, "Oh, Mr. Bell, it's such an honor to talk to you." And I'm like, "Wow, okay." She goes, "I Googled you, and I found you on IMDb." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay, yeah, I did a couple little small movies. I forgot about that." And then it's like, Mitchell Bell is known for Captain America, the First Avenger, Ant-Man. I didn't know I was so famous.
Wow, you are.
Yeah. Jeez.
Be asking for your autograph pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a letdown when I explained to her I was not the same Mitchell Bell who is the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy and all that stuff that you see on the credits. No. And forever, that guy never had his picture up forever. Now he finally has a picture of him and his wife at some event. And I'm like, damn it, Jim.
Saying you guys are looking really nice.
Yeah. He has his wife on there. Now I can't say. It's kind of like, hey, how'd you get the nickname Taco? And I go, well, it's easy. My dad started Taco Bell. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, look my dad up, you know. And
that was your dad?
No, that's what I joke about.
You made that up.
No, it's true. What's his name? Martha and Martha and Glenn, Taco Bell. Hold on a second.
Well, when you go to your site on YouTube, you have a Taco Bell commercial in the header of it. So I said,
"Oh, really?"
Yeah.
So when Glenn Bell and his wife Martha, he was a cook in the Marine Corps in World War II. and he started up Taco Bell.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I was a kid, all the kids, you know, the taco, 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 and like 75. So at the bus stop, what they would do. But I would tell the flight attendants, I go, yeah, my dad, I said, you got one of those old handheld computers? Yeah. I said, pull that thing out, go to Google and look my dad up. And they were like, what are you talking about? I said, marry me and eat for free. Pull up the phone and type in Glenn Bell and Martha Bell. So they pull up Glenn Bell, and the girl's like, oh my God, your dad founded Taco Bell? And I go, yeah. And it says Glenn Bell, blah, 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 U.S. Marine. And then gets down to it and said, you know, Glenn died on such and such date, and he survived by 2 sons, but it never mentioned their names. For years, it never mentioned the boys' names, I think, for privacy. And I go, yeah, I was the younger one. You know, they called me, you know, mistake, and they called me afterthought type thing. So, yeah, they were a bit older when I was young and stuff. And I joined the Marines like my dad. And they're just, I'm flying with the guy that, and they're, oh, you got to marry him. Like, no, I'm just teasing. My dad's Navy. I'm telling you.
My dad's in the Navy.
My dad's in the Navy, man. He's not Taco Bell.
You know, if we don't have a story to tell, we'll make one up.
That damn Skippy, man. If you're not having fun, something's wrong, right?
Exactly.
I mean, how many times were you in the bar wearing your XO's name patch? You know, when you're
on
the
funny
road
story
patch.
There is when we deployed to Med, we, you know, flight equipment guys are so cool, right? I mean, go down, and we were going out in the Ville with our flight suits on, and they made up our CO's name tag for all of us, Steve Haley. So we're all walking around with the CO's name tag. He never found out or nothing like that. And then another time we were in Norway, and we're flying, it's like 2 or 3 star general. We're flying around Norway. And I was flying in the Huey because I was in operations and there was short of Huey pilots. So my roommate, Mike Manful, who always wore a name tag that said Dick Fitzwell. And I always wore one that said Ron Jeremy on it. So we're flying this general around and all day long and whatnot. And he finally put him back in the camp or on the other ship. And he goes, you know, Dick, Ron, thanks for flying me around today. We said, no problem, sir. If you're not busting on people, you're not having fun.
Yeah, my favorite was I had Jay Walker.
Oh,
and this guy is like, Jay Walker, Captain Walker, Jay Walker. Why does that name sound familiar? Did we serve together? Were you? And I'm like, no, sir, no. And then we did have our XO's name, you know, First Lieutenant. I won't say his name on the air, but his call sign Sunshine. And we went to Norway, did Norway. You know what sucked about Norway? I go in there and they go, you're buying the last round, because I was a new guy. And I was standing at the bar when the AC bought the first round. So I knew how much he paid. And then they tapped me in, you know, it's like an hour, 2 hours later. Hey, your turn to buy the next round for everybody. So I go up there and put my credit card down. The price had gone up like triple. And I go, no. I was here. I stood here and he bought 7 beers and I know how much he paid. And the guy goes, oh, but in Norway, especially during the exercises, we increased the price of the beer per hour to keep people from getting drunker. They run out of money, you know? I'm like, you set me up, you son of a bitch, man.
Exactly.
New guy. That only works once. It's kind of like the Marine gunny that had, he goes, hey, sir, we're in the Philippines. I mean, what beer costs? 25 cents, San Miguel? Hey, sir, I'll bet you a beer. I got your name tattooed on my ass. I'm thinking everyone knows me as Mitch. My first name's something else. I go, I guarantee you this guy doesn't know my first name. I'll take you up on that bet. I mean, what, 25 cents, right? And he pulls his pants down and in cursive letters that said, your name. And I'm like, oh, man, that's worth the beer. And so I bought him a beer.
Absolutely.
He goes, you know what? That was the best $1.50 I ever spent getting that tattoo. You know how many free beers I've had in my lifetime over that? I'm like, yeah, I can see that. Your name, man. That is perfect.
Haven't heard that one before. That's pretty good.
Oh, your name, man. You get it. And you can be on the next thing and you can get Pedro Pascal to buy you a beer. And, you know, that was in 2015. That's when I retired from the Marines. Mm-hmm. And you filmed that. That is one of my favorite series, Narcos. And I do remember watching and seeing your name in the credits, right? And then I remember sending you this photo because you were gone that day and the guy had flipped his rack upside down. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's Pedro and there's the colonel from the embassy, and his rack was correct, but it was upside down. And I remember sending it to you, and you go, "Son of a bitch, that guy!" I had left like 2 days before that scene was filmed, and wardrobe screwed up his
Oh,
rack, and I wasn't there to correct it.
they screwed up everything. I mean, because he had the embassy guards and they were in their blues, or dressed bravos or whatever they were, the khaki top. And I see them in wardrobe and they're going to have lunch before they shoot. This guy's hair was longer than mine. I'm like, get those guys over to hair right now and give them, Marine Corps haircuts.
Yeah.
Being a producer, I've run across that several times when you have military people in your show, and it's kind of like, no, go get a haircut.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, thank you for what you do, bringing actual Marine Corps stuff to the screen, getting it correct except for that was somebody else, but other times taking care of us and making us look good, because you know what, we are Marines by God, and people on the screen. And I do know that this has probably been thrown out to you. Mom and Bob, Aunt Barb and Ron from Nebraska won't know that ribbon's upside down. It doesn't matter. And I had that argument with the guy about, yes, it matters to me. And it matters to my brothers that are watching it because I'm associated with it. So I know that you do your best. And I know that there's sometimes that the guys override you, and just for money or for whatever expedited reasons, they won't go to that extra detail. But if you can, I know that you guys throw a lot of roadblocks up there, and I appreciate that.
My pet peeve is when the flags are wrong, when they have the American flag. Yeah, it's supposed to be staged right. I can probably name several banks and productions I've walked onto a set and changed them. I had a bank that said, "What are you doing, sir?" I'm fixing your mistake is what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah.
It happens all the time.
I learned that lesson. We have Marine Metroplex luncheon once a month. And the girls had brought the flags out from the closet, and they just stuck them up there. And of course, I'm the MC. So who gets hammered for the flags being wrong? Me. And I'm looking at it. I go, dang it, they're right. And I flip them back. Sorry, gentlemen.
It's a curse.
I'll take the heat for that one. Yep. Well, Pete, when are you coming to Fort Worth? Anytime? You get you to Texas?
I don't know. You going to buy me a beer? I have your name on my ass.
You know what? I will throw you in the. We've got. What's your choice? We got a Hummer that we stole out of Iraq.
That's right. You got all the gear. That's right.
Yeah, stole the Hummer out of Iraq, or we could put you in the Fox or the Ferret. Take you for a spin. Go to the bar.
Didn't you have a mini one for your son or something like that?
Yeah, it's the that ferret right there. Yeah, that little ferret. That thing's a blast.
Oh my God, it's so funny, man. It's so funny. Yeah, I got to get down there. I haven't been to Texas in a while.
Yeah, come on down. We'll get Ed up. And did you know Tom Hoban?
Yeah, Tom and I talk all the time. Yep.
Yeah, Hoban's over.
We're in the same squadron together.
Yeah, I saw Tom at the airport probably a month ago, maybe. Okay. But yeah, we'll get everybody together and load you guys up.
That'd be fun.
Well, hey, hang on one second, and I'm going to drop you off and then say goodbye to you off air. But thank you so much, Pete, for
Sounds good, man.
You bet. You're right.
Take care, Taco.
Out here. Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Over the years, I've been able to interview just a lot of really cool Marines, and Pete is one of those guys that I hold in high esteem, not only as a professional Marine that I looked up to working for as a young major, coming back in, doing stuff. When you have people like that in your lives, it makes it so much better. Mentors taking care of you. And Pete is one of those guys, and I can't thank him enough for coming out here and joining us with Tall Tales with Taco. Stand by for another exciting episode next week. You guys come back and see us. Please share, like, tell your friends. I don't monetize my channel. Why? Because I don't need to. And I get tired of their ads. So hopefully you don't get an ad on this, because I turn them all off. Enjoy it, and we will catch you next week. Adios, Hasta luego, a wiedersehen, tschüss, sheshini, au revoir, domoregato gozaimasu, tando shinde, kudasai, ciao, arrivederci, see ya.